Welcome back to the video classroom. In this session, we'll take a look at the basic principles involved in choosing the proper contract type. In viewing this tape, you'll need a copy of the telequiz plus a pencil. As the tape progresses, I'm going to sequentially interject the questions contained on the quiz. Check either the yes or no block as you deem appropriate. Before we get started, however, let me ask, have you read Chapter 6, Subpart A8 through 11 of the text and the applicable reference material? If you haven't, turn me off and do your reading.
Mary, you've been here for 6 months, and that makes you the resident genius. How about spreading some of it around?
Flattery will get you everywhere. What's your problem?
I've been working on a procurement plan for a contract over $100K, and I'm really having trouble on choosing the right contract type. There's so many things to consider.
Your PR is for the housing for the experimental package, right?
Yeah.
I had a PR for a similar type of requirement, and I used a firm fixed price contract. Yours is basically the same thing. I'd use a firm fixed price contract.
Thanks, but first I've got to review the work statement.
To choose the proper contract type, do you have to read the work statement?
Review the work statement? What do you know about space technology?
Not much, but first I've got to find out if the work statement clearly and concisely sets forth what's to be done, or whether there's some uncertainty about it. In fact, I've already talked to Bill Sizemore, the technical officer.
You went to see the TO?
Yeah, and I found out some pretty interesting information. For example, I asked him about the trade-off studies in 3.41 of the work statement.
Bill, I wonder if you could help me. I'm a little confused on what the trade-offs are in 3.4-1 of the work statement.
Let's see. It says, starting from the baseline design, the contractor shall make trade-off studies in the course of his design effort. I see what's causing your problem. This doesn't say what the trade-offs are or the facts to be considered in the studies.
Do you think that we can list them?
No. The studies will be an outgrowth of the basic design. We'll have to see what trade-offs should be considered as we go along. But I can give you a general description of some of the factors, such as weight versus heat resistance, etc.
So you really can't say exactly what the contractor will have to do. Is it the same deal with the functional test wording in 3.2-1 on page 12?
It's the same. All we can say is that functional tests will be performed. How and under what conditions they'll be performed will have to be determined later.
In other words, when they're ready to be done, you're going to tell them what to do?
It would be more accurate to say that the contractor would consider appropriate tests during the developmental period, advise us of them, and then we would make the final decision.
So there are areas of uncertainty. I have another question about paragraph.
Was it appropriate for Ed to speak to Sizemore?
You see, even without a technical background, I can get some understanding of the work statement and spot potential difficulties.
I still say you could use a fixed price contract like I did with the last module.
Mary, I hate to disagree, but what you or anyone else may have done might be significant if we go to the same company. But this module is a whole new procurement, and I've got to choose the right contract type for this buy.
The module I worked on is almost finished, and the contractor had to do the same sort of things you described.
You mean the trade-off studies and the testing?
Yeah, they made a size-functions trade-off. I think they decreased the size to fit into the spacecraft and had to sacrifice a minor function of the module to do it.
Okay, so they did the same sort of thing, but I'm not sure what that has to do with choosing a contract type for my PR.
Does past experience with a similar item have any bearing on choosing contract type?
Don't you see that past experience with similar items is important? Knowing how much it cost last time removes much of the uncertainty this time.
What you said may be true, but adequacy of the specifications isn't the only factor to be considered in choosing contract type. I didn't tell you everything about my meeting with Sizemore.
You've been at this a lot longer than I have. Is there anything else I should know about your requirement before I choose the proper contract type?
Well, you do know that we have a funding problem, don't you?
Funding?
We only have $125,000, but our original planning for this phase allocated almost $200,000.
What happened to the rest? Was funding reduced?
It might as well have been. Phase 1 was handled under a cost-plus fixed fee contract, and the clowns who did the work managed to have a $60,000 overrun. We can't afford that sort of problem again. If Phase 2 isn't done within the available funding, the whole program is in trouble.
Well,
You contract folks have a tough job to do. We need a competent contractor who can do the work without busting the budget. Money is hard to come by for space research these days. We can't afford to have any of it wasted.
See what I mean? There are a lot of factors to consider.
Yeah, but what's your overriding problem? You need performance of the work at a given dollar level.
Sizemore would be able to meet his budget then.
Well, only a firm fixed price contract will guarantee performance by the contractor within the number of dollars that you have.
Will a fixed price contract guarantee performance? Is available funding pertinent to choosing contract type?
When you consider what Bill Sizemore told me about the trade-off studies and the testing, you can understand that a contractor might not be able to judge the cost risks involved in performance.
Well, I still don't quite see your problem. There's some cost risk to everything. Why is that so important to choosing a contract type?
Hey, it's the most important consideration. Some contract types don't provide any cost relief to the contractor, so the contract type really determines whether the government or the contractor will bear the burden of cost risk.
I can't disagree with that statement. But I also remember something out of the NASA procurement regulations that says that a firm fixed price contract is preferred since it puts the minimum cost risk on the government.
Yeah, I know. It's that part of the regulations that got me thinking about fixed price, even though the contractor might have to assume pretty big risks.
You keep talking about the contractor. Who do you work for anyway?
What do you mean by that?
Well, if a firm fixed price contract puts the cost risk on the contractor and a cost plus fixed fee contract puts the cost risk on the government, then we ought to go with a firm fixed price contract since we work for the government.
So what you're saying is that no matter what the cost risk, we should use a fixed price contract. Don't you think that we have some obligation to pick a type that protects the contractor from unreasonable risks?
Sure, but those people know what they're doing. They're not going to accept a contract type unless they can accept the level of risk involved.
But if we always put maximum risk on the contractor in our solicitations, won't it discourage them from doing business with NASA?
Should solicitations always put maximum risks on the contractor?
Think about it a minute, Ed. We are talking about contracting with profit-making companies. They are in business to make a profit, and profits are properly related to risk. If they're not willing to take risks, why should they profit? Besides, if they feel the risk is too great, they can discuss it during negotiation.
You lost me again, Mary. What do you mean that they can discuss the level of risk? Once the government specifies the contract terms and conditions, including contract type in the RFP, either the contractor takes it or leaves it. They can offer or not offer, but only on the basis we said we'll accept.
Either football scrambled your brains or you weren't listening. Contract type is negotiable, Ed. No matter what you put in that RFP, the contractor can propose on any basis he thinks is more appropriate.
Is contract type negotiable?
Some negotiation. You pointed out that a fixed price contract puts all the cost risk on the contractor, and that a cost plus fixed fee contract puts all the risk on the government. It's really nice of you to offer to negotiate that, but if I were a potential offerer, I'm still not sure I'd want in on that sort of deal.
Well, why not?
The way that you would have it, the RFP would specify a firm fixed price contract, right?
Okay, so far.
And the offerers could either go along with that, which might not be too smart a thing to do if the cost risk were too great.
That's right, they could.
And if they did go along, they could be risking a big loss unless they padded the price to protect themselves.
Okay, that's another possibility.
Neither of those alternatives is very desirable.
You're right, but there are other choices of contract type.
Yeah, cost plus fixed fee.
No, come on, Ed. There's more than that. And some of them can spread the cost risk between the government and the contractor in varying proportion. A company could propose on one of those types of contracts.
That's not what I understand. It would be nice if that were true. Basically, there are two types of contracts: fixed price and cost reimbursement. Somebody gets stuck with all the risk, and that's that.
Does one party to the contract always have to assume all the risks?
Basically, there are two types of contracts: fixed price and cost reimbursement. Somebody gets stuck with all the risk, and that's that.
Now, Ed, you know better than that.
No, I don't. But I'll bet you the boss would.
Right. Let's see if Harry has a minute.
Okay, I've heard both sides. Now let's go to the real source for some of our answers.
I think the chief arbitrator and contracting officer is trying to tell us something.
Yep. I get the feeling that our first question should have been, where in the NASA procurement regulations do we find...
Exactly.
Honestly, I don't think there's anything in the NASA PR about discussing the clarity of a work statement with the technical officer, but I still think it was the right thing to do.
You certainly did need to review the work statement with Bill Sizemore. Oh, right, there's nothing in the NASA PR that says anything like, thou shalt talk to the TO about requirements. But look here in paragraph 3.402.
It does say that the uncertainties involved in performing at the cost estimated and their possible impact on costs must be identified and evaluated. I guess you would have to read the work statement to do that.
Right. Sometimes some parts of the work statement may not be entirely clear. By questioning the technical officer, you can usually clarify them. That's the first step in reducing performance uncertainties.
Thus, you have the answers to telequiz questions 1 and 2. To understand the cost risks associated with performance, you must read the work statement. The contractor's assumption of cost risk varies according to contract type utilized. Reading the work statement will help you assess the risk level and allow you to clear up any ambiguities with the technical officer.
Okay,
Wait,
so...
Ed, that's only half of it. Even once all ambiguities are removed, there still may be considerable areas of significant unknowns that need to be evaluated as they relate to the contractor's ability to estimate costs.
But how do you do that?
Well, one way is to determine whether the same or similar work has been done previously. If it has, then the risks involved can be identified